Hello, computer scientists. Today we are going to connect to MongoDB with Python. And first off, before we do anything else, in case you want to learn a little bit about Python, I have a little tutorial here that takes a couple hours to get through, but seems to work pretty well. It's all basics like for loops, while loops, variables, strings, stuff like that. So especially because you have experience with Java, should be pretty straightforward. If you click on that link, it takes you here, and you can just click on join this course. If you have questions, obviously I'll be on Discord and or send me an email, and that should work fine. Obviously that's optional. You do not need to do that, but probably worthwhile. Another thing that I would highly recommend is setting up an online database. So what we did was we set up a local MongoDB database running on your machine, and similar to MySQL, when we did that, we also had one on a production server, and I am happy to set up one on the production server as well, but you can also set up your own. So that is what we're going to use today. You can, for the exercises today, you can use either the online one, your online one, or your local one. It doesn't matter. It'll work the same way. So if you want to do that, go ahead and go to MongoDB Atlas. You can just search for it, and then yeah, just go ahead and create an account. It's all free. Just make sure you choose the free tier. You can see right here. Each of these providers has a free tier, and we're not going to be using it so much that you ever get charged any money. So once you've done that, you'll create a new free instance, and then when you create it, it asks you what IP addresses you want to allow to connect. You can allow anybody to connect to your database. I don't recommend it. The easiest thing to do is go to what is my IP, just Google it, and it should just show up. I'm not showing you the whole thing here, but you can just use that, and it will allow you to connect from your local machine. Obviously, if you change locations, if you go to school, if you go to work, if you go to a coffee shop, you'll have to add those IPs as well. But I can actually show you how to do that. So when you log in to your MongoDB, it will look like this. And if you click on security and you click on IP whitelist, then you can add a bunch of other ones, right? So I have a work one, and that says home, but it's actually work. And then I also have a VPN. So worst case scenario, if I'm somewhere, I can always load up my VPN and it will get me to a specific IP address. But anyway, point being, add your home, and away you go. All right, and of course, like I said before, if that doesn't work, you can always use your local instance. All right, so I started up Compass. If I wanted to connect to my local machine, you guys have hopefully already done this. Click connect, and here's my local machine. I can create my database. I can do all sorts of exciting stuff. If I want to connect to my Atlas instance, then I need to go back into Atlas here. Let me make sure that you guys can see everything that you need to see. All right, so I have to click on the connect button. If I clicked on the connect button, it gives me some different options. If I want to connect with MongoDB Compass, then I click on there. And I already have it, so I don't need to download it. I just need to copy the connection string here. So let's copy that. And we'll bring up Compass again. And I want to connect to. And it says, oh, look, it already has a connection string in my clipboard. Do I want a connection string filled from? Yes, I do. Of course, it doesn't fill in the username and password for me. I need to fill that out. So I created a CS485 user. And I should be able to connect. So here's my remote database. This is the one in Atlas, and you can see up here, this is the name of the server. So I now have 2 MongoDBs running. I have one on my local machine that I connect to and one on Atlas that I can connect to. If you are getting errors, chances are it is your whitelist that is not working. So you have to be able to remember, in security, you have to be able to connect from your current IP address. This is my current IP address. So if you go to what is my IP, if you Google that and that's not in this list, then you're not going to be able to connect to it using Compass. All right, so let's carry on. We are going to learn some Python. So let's go here. All right, so in Python, arrays are called lists. The name is pretty interchangeable, but the one difference is that a list in Python can contain lots of different things in it. It doesn't have to all be the same type. So let me give you an example. All right, so I started up Thani. And one thing that I like to do in Thani is when I start it up in view, I like to see the variables, and that just helps me debug a little bit. So I made this program, and one thing you'll notice right off the bat is variables. You don't need to declare their type. You can just set a variable to whatever you want, basically, and Python will figure it out for you. So I created a variable called myList, and I set it equal to this list, right? You'll notice the difference is that not all the things in the list are of the same type, and it'll run this perfectly happily. There's a string, integer, a string, floating point. Python doesn't care, right? And I can access it just like arrays in Java. So if I want the 0th item, right? Everything starts at 0 in arrays. Then I do square brackets. If I want 1, 0, 1, 2, right? That'll print out hello. So it should be pretty familiar to you if you're familiar with arrays in Java. The big difference being you can put whatever you want in it, right? You can even put in an array inside an array, which is pretty cool, right? All right, so we can do really cool things like automatically check for inclusion. So going back to Thani, we can say, if A is in my list, then print yes, else print no. Right, and so I run that, and it says yes, because A is in my list. It's that easy to search for things. What you really want to notice is the indentation here. Remember how I said in class there's no squiggly braces. Right, so in order for Python to know what is part of this if statement, right? What do I do if A is in my list? Everything needs to be indented. That would be the same in Java as putting squiggly braces around this whole thing. If I don't indent something, that means the if statement is only going to do this stuff, and then it's going to continue on down here as if it were not in curly braces. So that's why the else is on the same level as the if. Some other interesting things you can do with lists in Python are slices. So you can just print out part of it. So let's say we just want a few items of our list. Right? This will print out the 0th one, which is A, the first one, and then it'll stop at 2. So this is the beginning part, and this is where it stops. It does not include item 2. So if you go down here, you can see it prints out A and 1. If I change this to 3, it'll print out A, 1, and hello. All right, so you can slice your list however you want. It's just a handy little tool. All right. All right, so next we're going to use dictionaries. So I'm just going to copy this directly into Thonny. And what it does is it creates a dictionary called myDict. And just like JSON objects, it has a key and a value. Oops, value. Key and a value. So you can store anything you want. The key has to be a string, but the value can be anything you want. It's like a dictionary, right? Like you store the definition under a word. So if my word is name, what's stored under it is John. If the word is a game, what's stored under it is teaching CS. So this is the key and this is the value. So let's go ahead and run this. We don't need this line for now. So what it does is it creates this dictionary and it looks in the dictionary under name and prints out whatever is in there. So I can change the name. All right, so I want to change it from John to Mr. Bartus. Whoops, Mr. Bartus. Be careful with those quotation marks. And then I'm going to print it out again. All right, so I printed out, first it created it as John, then I changed it to Mr. Bartus, and printed it out again. If I want to print out the game, you can see that too, teaching CS. So whatever I put in here, and again, I can put whatever I want. Say the key is my, that's a list in Python, my list, and in it I put a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Python is perfectly happy to do that. I'm going to print out, why don't I just print out the whole dictionary? All right. So you can see if I print out the entire dictionary as name, John, game, teaching CS, and a list inside it. And again, if you go over here in the variables, you can also see what's going on in there. If I just wanted to print out the list, I would say, look under my list, and it would print out that list. So dictionaries are really useful because they look just like JSON objects, and we can use that to our advantage. All right, the next thing that we want to look at is exception handling, and you guys hopefully are pretty familiar with this, again, because of Java. So what happens if we try to print 5 divided by 0? Can life go on if we do this? So let's try running this program. Division by 0, and you'll notice can life go on is not printed. All right, the program barfs here because we tried to do something illegal. Right? So what would be useful is if we could say, hey, let's try to do this, and if it doesn't work, then let's catch the exception and deal with it gracefully. So we can do something like this, where we have the same division error, but we're going to do it in a try block, and we're going to catch the exception. So let's import sys to get our exceptions. We're going to run the same block of code, print 5 divided by 0, but we're going to try and catch this exception and see if the code can keep going after we've caught that exception. And it sure does, right? We print out the exception. We say, hey, programmer, there was an exception here. You should probably do something with that. But the program does keep going afterwards. So we can use this in a database scenario where, you know, if you can't connect, if you get errors, stuff like that, exception handling can be very useful. All right, so if you remember from last week, this is literally all the code we need in order to connect to a Mongo database. If you don't have PyMongo installed, make sure you go into Manage Packages and search for PyMongo. Click search, and I've got it installed. If it's not, all you got to do is click the install button and it would do that for you. All right, so I run this and it doesn't do anything, but it doesn't barf, right? So we know that we have a valid connection to the local host. So what if we wanted to insert something in our database, right? So let's connect to the local host first. We'll try Atlas in a second. Our database is going to be the test database. I'm going to create a new collection called users. And remember, it does it lazily. So if users doesn't already exist, it'll create it for us. So I don't need to worry about creating a new collection. And all I'm going to do is create one document that has a first name and a last name. I'm going to print out what I'm going to insert, and then I'm going to try to insert it. And if there is an exception, it will say insert failed. And if it succeeds, it'll print insert succeeded, and it'll print out our new document. So let's run it. All right, so what's going on here? We printed the document. So at first, the document looks just like this: first name, last name. It says about to insert the document. About to insert the document. Try insert one with this document, which is a dictionary in Python, right? This is a dictionary, just like we were talking about a few minutes ago. Did it fail? No. It says insert succeeded. And then I printed the document again, but look what it has now. First name, last name, and ID. So MongoDB automatically creates this unique object ID for us. And not only that, it put it into our document for us, which is pretty cool. So if you go into your MongoDB compass and your localhost connection, you should be able to see the entry you just entered. I added a couple other people, but right, there's the one I created. So I should make sure it's there. So now we just want to see if we can find all our documents in this collection using Python. So let's go back to Thonny. And we have the same thing, same connection, same database, same users collection. And if you remember, the way that you find things in MongoDB, the select command, if you will, is just called find. So if I run this, of course, nothing prints out, but it finds, this is the same as select star from users. So in the users collection, find everything and put it in results. So again, what's cool about Python is if I want to iterate through everything in my results, I just say for my variable entry in results, this will go through results one at a time and put it in the variable called entry. So for every entry in the results, print out the entry. And remember, it's tabbed over there. So if I run this now, all right, for each entry, print out entry, it goes through, prints out everything I got back, which is, you know, exactly what I wanted. If I want to get a little bit fancier, right, I can just find all the documents where the first name is Nina. Right, it's just going to find that one document. First name equals Ashley. Right, that. And if you look online, it shows you, I mean, there's just like select statements, there are you know, a million ways you can find things. You can use regular expressions even. So find everything where the field first name matches a regular expression starts with J. I run that and it finds John. So I have links in the slides to where you can learn more about how to do fancy find commands. But you know, a lot of the time you might just want to find everything. Oops, I have an extra. And manually deal with the data that comes back. That is up to you. All right, so the last thing that we're going to do is do the same thing, but on the Atlas account. So this, if you look up here, says cluster blah 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 mongodb.net. So this is on my free Atlas production database, remote database, whatever you want to call it. I created a couple things, and I just want to show you that it works exactly the same way on the remote database as it does on the local database. So I'm going to insert myself, then I'm just going to run the find commands. All I'm going to do is change the connection information to be remote. So the easiest way to do that is I go back to cloud.mongodb, I log back into the website, the MongoDB website, and it brings up all my clusters here. I click on connect again, but this time instead of using MongoDB Compass, I want to connect with an application. I'm not going to use node.js, I am going to use Python. My version is 3.6 or later, and again it gives me this handy dandy connection string right here. You can look at the full driver example if you want. But all I really need is the connection string. So I'm going to copy the connection string because we already have the driver and everything set up. And I go into Thani and I replace my connection string here instead of localhost with my new connection string. So what I'm actually going to do, because I might want to go back to my localhost later, is I'm just going to comment this out. And I'm going to copy it. But where I connected to localhost before, I am going to copy this string and paste it. So it hasn't put in my password, obviously. So I created this user and I can put in my password. And that's pretty much it. If I run it, that's going to try and insert me. Insert succeeded, gives me back my object ID. I can go back into Compass. Nope, that's my local one. I want to go back into my remote one, and I just want to reload the view. So once I have clicked on reload data, it will show me that now John Bartus is in here. So I now have 3 documents in my collection. And I go back to Thani. I use this document string again, change the password to my actual password. Instead of the localhost, it's now going to Atlas, and boom. So there are the 3 entries in my remote database. So hopefully that's helpful. In the slides, I have your homework is basically write a Python program that accesses your own database, maybe creates a document, updates a document, and deletes a document. So we need full CRUD. Include the exception handling. And here are some links to get you started. W3 Schools has a lot of information, which is really useful. And then, of course, Mongo itself has a tutorial on getting started. If you click on that, remember to click on the Python so that you can see all the cool things you can do. And again, I will be on Discord and on email. So let me know how it goes.